Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about my top 12 tight end rankings for fantasy football in 2021. Inside of this video, I'm going to be talking about all of these top 12 tight ends 2020 season, as well as how I project them to play in 2021 due to the changes around them or lack thereof to make them still a solid option going into 2021. So if you guys do end up enjoying this video and you want more fantasy football content, please make sure that you hit that subscribe button down below, because not only is it free, I put out content every single day to help you guys win your 2021 fantasy football championship. So without further ado, let's get into it. We begin at tight end number 1, and to be honest with you, it should be of no surprise who this guy is. There's a reason why in a lot of leagues you're seeing Travis Kelsey go as a first round pick. Current underdog ADP 7.3. Travis Kelsey, to be honest with you, is in a league of his own at the tight end position. He is in his own tier because he is just simply the guy at the tight end position in fantasy football due to how consistent he is week in and week out, and the fact that he's barely ever going to have any bad games. In 15 games last season, he finished as tight end 1 in PPR, half PPR, as well as in standard, averaging 20.9 PPR points per game, 17.4 half PPR points per game, and 13.9 standard points per game, meaning from a points per game perspective, he was tight end 1 in all formats. That's in PPR, half PPR, as well as in standard. And that honestly should come by as no surprise at all, because Travis Kelsey was the number 1 tight end off the board basically for the last 2-3 seasons. After Rob Gronkowski kind of had his time in the limelight as the tight end 1, Travis Kelsey recently took over, and honestly, there's really no reason to think that there should be any type of decline in Travis Kelsey's game. 31.6 years old, and he's still just as good as he was a couple of years ago. Last season, this guy had 145 targets. 145 targets, almost 10 per game, second highest at the tight end position. He had 105 receptions, around 7 per game, second highest at the tight end position. 1,400 receiving yards, number 1 at the tight end position, and 11 total touchdowns, number 1 at the tight end position. If I'm being honest with you, there's not too much to talk about the Kansas City Chiefs. Obviously, their offensive line looked as soft as dog shit at the beginning of not even at the beginning of the season, right? During the season, they're looking pretty good, but during the Super Bowl, they frankly could not hold anything. But then throughout the offseason, magically, they built it all back together Lego style, and now they have a great offensive line, likely. Again, they still have Patrick Mahomes, they still have Tyreek Hill. This offense, as long as Patrick Mahomes can stay healthy, is going to be sprinkling on points game in and game out, and Travis Kelsey is probably the number 1 target on this team, aside from Tyreek Hill. It seems like every single time they're in the red zone, Travis Kelsey is getting that look, and frankly, he is just going to be good year in and year out, and it's kind of just a no-brainer at this point to put Travis Kelsey at the number 1 overall spot. He is just such a game breaker at the tight end position. With a lot of these guys, even inside the top 12, week in, week out, you're like, man, do I even want to start that guy, right? But you have to start them because it's so hard to kind of find a great tight end in fantasy football. That's why people are going with a first-round tight end strategy of snagging Travis Kelsey super early in their draft, because every single week he's in your roster. He's putting up the big points for you, and he's carrying your team. I love Kelsey again in 2021. Again, nothing really needs to be talked about too much here with Travis Kelsey. At number 2, we have Darren Waller of the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, Darren Waller has been pretty solid for around 2 years now. Right now, current underdog ADP 24.6. So based upon that, he would be the tight end 3 coming off the board on underdog, because my third tight end that I'm going to be talking about in a couple of minutes actually goes ahead of him. Darren Waller in 16 games last year finished as the tight end 2 in PPR, half PPR, as well as in standard, averaging 17.4 PPR points per game, 14.1 half PPR points per game, and 10.7 standard points per game, meaning from a points per game basis, he was tight end number 2 in PPR, 2.5 PPR, and tight end number 2 in standard. While this Las Vegas Raiders offense has kind of struggled at times, Darren Waller is just playing well regardless of what happens. even in games where the Raiders are kind of being they're limp dicking around. Derek Carr isn't looking all that great. Darren Waller is just a huge bright spot in this offense. He was number 1 overall in targets as well as receptions at the tight end position. Obviously, the only guy higher than Travis Kelsey, 146 targets, number 1 at the tight end position, 107 receptions, number 1 at tight end. He had 1,195 receiving yards, number 2 at tight end, and 9 total touchdowns, number 3 at tight end. So even if the Raiders aren't that good of a team, this guy is definitely the number 1 target on the Las Vegas Raiders. Name another wide receiver that is as good, or even a pass catcher, I should say, obviously, because Darren Waller is not a wide receiver, but name a pass catcher on the Raiders as good as Darren Waller. The answer is you cannot. Darren Waller is very, very good, and I think a lot of people are going to be debating heavily between Darren Waller and George Kittle in that 2nd or 3rd round range, and trying to kind of figure them out. To me, it's very, very close. It is slim picking, but I feel as though I know what kind of offense Darren Waller is in, and I feel like he's going to be very productive in this system in Las Vegas, whereas with George Kittle, they may end up moving off of his boy, Jimmy Garoppolo, who just feeds the rock down his throat, whereas with Darren Waller, we already know it's going to be Derek Carr, so I think that that's really what gives him the slight edge, in my opinion. But again, if you want to argue about how George Kittle is slightly better than Darren Waller, you're basically going to be talking to yourself, because frankly, it's so close that it almost doesn't even matter. I think that this Las Vegas Raiders team hopefully should be a little bit better in 2021, and with the fact that Derek Carr is one of the more underrated quarterbacks in the NFL, I think that Darren Waller will continue to get fed, at least for this year in 2021. At number 3, we have George Kittle Me Timbers, tight end number 2, based upon current underdog ADP at pick 24.2. In 8 games last year, George Kittle finished as tight end 19 in PPR, 19 half PPR, as well as 19 in standard, averaging 15.6 PPR points per game, 12.6 half PPR points per game, and 9.6 standard points per game. You flip that around, you get 6.9. Very nice. I like. From a points per game perspective, he was tight end 3 in PPR, half PPR, as well as in standard. So obviously, George Kittle ended up getting hurt last year. That's why he ended up missing half of those games with a foot fracture that caused him to miss 6 games in the middle of the season at week 8, and his other 2 games were from an MCL sprain from week number 1 of the 2020 NFL season. Now, obviously, George Kittle has missed some games in the past. He has not played a full season in the past 2 years, ended up only playing 14 games in 2019, but that narrative shouldn't really stray you away from drafting a guy like George Kittle. 63 targets last year, again, in only 8 games, for a grand total of 48 receptions, 2 total tugs, and 634 receiving yards, 9th highest at the tight end position. So even with only playing 8 games, on a points per game basis, that's what you really want to be looking at here. This guy is obviously going to be a top 3 guy week in and week out at the tight end position when he is healthy, even if the 49ers are a team that, when you think about them, you think about this running back assault, just a running back by orgy, 7 different running backs tagging in, tagging out, and going ham on the defense. But it doesn't seem to matter at all, because Jimmy Garoppolo or Trey Lance should be targeting George Kittle, as he is a focal point inside of this offense. Again, you're just grasping at straws, trying to determine who's better, Waller or Kittle. Personally, I lean Waller, but I do think Kittle should be pretty productive. It's just going to be interesting to see what this offense looks like if they do turn to go Trey Lance eventually in this season. I believe as long as Jimmy Garoppolo is not injured, he will be the guy getting the nod week 1 to be the starter. But how long does it take for the fans in San Francisco, for the team to eventually put in Trey Lance, especially if Jimmy Garoppolo doesn't, do anything sexy, right? He's a good-looking guy, but he doesn't necessarily make those sexy plays on the field. So that's just kind of how I feel about George Kittle. At number 4, we have TJ Hawkinson of the Detroit Lions, underdog ADP 63.7. Now, TJ Hawkinson is a guy that to me is pretty close to Kittle and Waller. Last year in 16 games, finishes tight end number 5 in PPR, 4.5 PPR, as well as tight end number 5 in standard, averaging 11 PPR points per game, 8.9 half PPR points per game, and 6.8 standard points per game, 0.1 off of being very nice. From a points per game perspective, he was tight end 6 in PPR, tied with Robert Tanyan and Logan Thomas. He was tight end number 7 in half PPR, tied with Mike Licky Amagasiki and tight end number 8 in standard. Now, obviously, there has been some big changes for TJ Hawkinson. He loses his guy in Matthew Stafford. They trade Matthew Stafford to the Rams. Obviously, Jared Goff and multiple picks come their way. They also lose Marvin Jones in the offseason, signed by the Jacksonville Jaguars, and the Detroit Lions lose their main wide receiver. Now, I would argue that Marvin Jones as well as Kenny Golladay are kind of a 1A, 1B in Detroit, but now they're both gone. Obviously, Golladay is a New York football giant, so who's going to be the main target in Detroit? Again, I will give you another example. Even with Darren Waller, right, you can name the other receivers on the team, right? You can name another wide receiver. You can name a Henry Ruggs. You can name a Hunter Renfrow. Name another wide receiver on the Detroit Lions, right? I mean, I know there's a couple of them. Quintez Cephus. But besides that, name another wide receiver. They don't have any. They do not have any. Capiche? It's going to be TJ Hawkinson and literally DeAndre Swift are your two best pass catchers on this team. I think Hawkinson is going to be getting a hefty load of targets, just like Mia Malkova takes a hefty load to the face in those videos you can find on the other tube. Not the YouTube, the other one. So, 101 targets last year for Mr. Hawkinson, 5th highest at the tight end position, 67 receptions, 4th highest at the tight end position, 6 total tugs, 9th highest at the tight end position, and 723 receiving yards, 3rd highest at tight end. So again, that's with Marvin Jones at least being there, and Kenny Golladay being there for some of the games, right? Kenny Golladay missed a bunch of games, but Marvin Jones actually played a full 16, I believe, last season. Maybe I'm wrong. He played at least 14 games. I remember that off the top of my head. So now it's just TJ Hawkinson. Even if Jared Goff is a downgrade from Stafford, which I completely believe, I completely understand that narrative, Jared Goff is not necessarily a guy that just closes his eyes and doesn't throw to the tight end, right? He's not a guy who's not going to throw to the best player on the team at the pass-catching position, and that is clearly going to be TJ Hawkinson in this Detroit Lions offense. Without all these other guys at the wide receiver position, it's just blatantly obvious that TJ Hawkinson is going to be getting fed the Lions' share of carries. Lions share. So funny, right? They're the fucking Lions. But at the end of the day, that's all I think about it. I think Hawkinson took a nice step from his rookie year in 2019 into 2020. I think he's going to take an even bigger leap like he's on the moon in 2021. I love Mr. Hawkinson as my tight end number 4. At number 5, we have a guy that I had high hopes, like a Maroon 5 song. I think that this guy kind of disappointed me. He disappointed me, right? But he wasn't shit, right? You drafted him as like the tight end 3 last year. Mark Andrews of the Baltimore Ravens currently coming off the board, underdog ADP 60. In 14 games, he finished as tight end 6 in PPR, 5.5 PPR, and 4 in standard. So if you drafted him as the tight end 3, you're not really disappointed because he didn't completely bust and play completely shitty, but he also didn't live up to the expectations, obviously. Averaging 12.2 PPR points per game, 10.1 half PPR points per game, and 8 standard points per game. From a points per game perspective, he was tight end number 4 in PPR, tight end 4.5 PPR, and tight end number 4 in standard. Now, the hard knock life it would be for a tight end in the Ravens system, obviously, is the fact that they like to run the ball so much. Why wouldn't you like to run the ball when you have J.K. Dobbins, when you have Gus Edwards, when you had Mark Ingram, and when you have Lamar Jackson, right? This is just going to be a rushing attack. Obviously, they lose Mark Ingram. He goes to Houston to be a part of Phillip Lindsay, David Johnson, and him, right? It's just a fucking orgy over there. But at the end of the day, they're still going to try to run the ball, which definitely hurts Mark Andrews' value. And by try to run the ball, I mean jam the ball down the defense's throat. They are going to maneuver their way up the field meticulously by running the rock. The question is, will Mark Andrews be able to return to form in the touchdown category and start scoring like 12 to 15 touchdowns maybe next year? Or will he kind of just score 7 again and then he finishes as like tight end 5 or 6, and you're just fine with having drafted him as the tight end number 5. He had 89 targets last year, 9th highest at the tight end position, 58 receptions, 9th highest at the tight end position for 701 receiving yards and 7 total touchdowns. Definitely a down spiral from the 2019 season where he had 98 targets, he had 64 receptions, he had 852 receiving yards, and 10 total touchdowns, number 1 at the tight end position. And why I loved Mark Andrews so much in 2019 was because he was the unknown. They have other tight ends kind of ahead of him on the roster in 2019. But then he becomes the guy week 1 up against my Miami Dolphins. I'm pretty sure this guy literally went 12 inches deep into the Dolphins' asshole without the use of any lube. He didn't even have the common courtesy to spit before he stuck it directly into my ass, because I'm a Dolphins fan. That's how it felt. I had him on my fantasy team, and I was still pissed. I'm pretty sure. Let me pull up the game log right here. Yeah. Oh, no. It was up against the Cleveland Browns. That was in 2018. That's what I was talking about, when Lamar Jackson was the guy who just destroyed the Miami Dolphins. I'm pretty sure that's what I was thinking of. But in any case, week 1, he plays up against Cleveland, is the second best tight end in fantasy football. Then he's kind of going up and down, but eventually he finds his stride as like a top 10 guy every single week. But in 2020, there was some ups, there was some downs, but at the end of the day, I think that he's a really safe option. Even if they are a team that's going to run the ball a lot, I still think that Mark Andrews is worthy of a top 5 pick at the tight end position. Now on to tight end 6 through 10. So if you guys have ended up enjoying this video thus far, please make sure that you hit that subscribe button down below. I would appreciate it a ton. At number 6, we have tight end Dallas Goedert of the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, obviously, this is under the assumption that Zach Ertz gets traded. It has to be under this assumption, because if Zach Ertz is still playing, while he seems to get hurt a lot, he's still going to be playing a bunch of games, and that is going to significantly hurt Dallas Goedert's value, currently coming off the board on Underdog as pick number 85.1. Now, Dallas Goedert doesn't really have the stats, right, of an elite tight end. On 11 games, he finishes as tight end number 20 in PPR, half PPR, as well as in standard, averaging 10.6 PPR points per game, 8.5 PPR points per game, or 8.5 half PPR points per game, 6.4 standard points per game, and from a points per game perspective, he was tight end number 9 in PPR, tied with Mike Licky on Magasicki, all tight end number 10 in half PPR, and tight end number 13 in standard. So what's so special about Dallas Goedert? It's the numbers I'm going to read you right now. He played in 7 games with Zach Ertz in the lineup versus 4 without. In the games without Zach Ertz, he's averaging 10.12 half PPR points per game. With Zach Ertz, it's 7.56. For PPR, he's averaging 12.25 without Zach Ertz. With Zach Ertz, it's 9.63. In standard, it's 8 without Zach Ertz and 5.46 with Zach Ertz. Why is this? It is because of an increase in touchdowns. It's not really the receptions that are going up here. It's not really the targets either. The receptions ended up going up slightly. The targets were actually down without Zach Ertz in the lineup. It's just that Zach Ertz is kind of the guy in the red zone that you want to be throwing the ball to. So I think that in 2021, with Zach Ertz gone, we're going to be seeing a whole lot of Dallas Goedert, as he might literally be this season's best wide receiver, or best pass catching option on the team. I understand they ended up drafting Slim Reaper Devontae Smith, and I have high hopes for Devontae Smith, but I also think that Jalen Hurts knows that Dallas Goedert is a super safe option to throw the ball to. Obviously, he's going to be super safe. This motherfucker is 6'5", 256 pounds, built like a brick shithouse. 65 targets, 46 receptions, 3 total tugs, 524 receiving yards last season. Again, don't look too much into the stats. Look onto the team and the roster around him. Look onto the fact of how he played with Zach Ertz versus without Zach Ertz. Look at the fact that Zach Ertz is probably gone and that Jalen Hurts wants to keep his job, and how you keep the job is by feeding the big-bodied tight end over the middle. I believe that Dallas Goedert has top 5 potential, and that's why I have him ranked at number 6. Now, number 7, this is a guy that everyone is basically on their knees right now, just gargling on this guy's cock. Tight end Kyle Pitts out of Florida, now of the Atlanta Falcons. Current underdog ADP 59.0. Now, people might even be mad that I have him ranked behind Dallas Goedert, but I'm going to give you guys a quick explanation on that. It is because rookie tight ends in fantasy football are typically never really good. They're typically never finishing as a top 5 tight end. So I'm not drafting him to be a top 5 tight end, but I think by the time we're drafting in August, his ADP is going to go from 59.0, and then magically he's going to be pick like 30 or something. You're going to have to pick him in the 3rd round, and in that case, I'm out. Like in Shark Tank when he's like, for that reason, I'm out. That's basically how I feel about it. I think that Kyle Pitts will be heavily utilized in this offense. I believe that the Atlanta Falcons are going to move on from Julio Jones. I thought it would have already happened by now, but it hasn't. But they're fielding all these offers. They're trying to look through everything to figure out what's best for the team, and I understand that. So I think he's going to be gone. So Kyle Pitts is obviously going to be used, but based upon the statistics from the past at the rookie position for tight ends as rookies, he's definitely going against the numbers. But the narrative for why he could be great is because no one's ever talked about a tight end. At least from my memory, no one has talked about a tight end like I've seen people talk about Kyle Pitts. No one has called a tight end prospect Calvin Johnson as a tight end. No one has talked about a tight end being this ferocious, being this good. So maybe he actually will live up to this. Will live up to the expectations, and then I feel like a dumbass saying that he's going to be tight end number 7. But to me, it's better to be safe than sorry. This dude is super fast, though. 4.44 pro day 40 in the 99th percentile, 98th percentile speed score. Those numbers are provided by Player Profiler. Obviously, I'm not trying to steal their fucking measurements or something. 79th percentile burst score, 66th percentile agility score, 85th percentile catch radius. This guy's stats from college, while they don't look unreal, right? When you see 8 games, 43 targets, 67 receptions, 770 receiving yards, and 12 touchdowns, you're not like, that's an amazing year, right? Because in the NFL, these tight ends are frankly putting up 1,000+ yards, like these elite guys. But in college, tight ends aren't used like that, and this guy still heavily dominated. So just flip on the tape, watch Kyle Pitts. Don't watch a highlight tape. Watch like the actual type in Kyle Pitts versus. You can see it, and you'll see this guy just a man amongst boys. Now he's going to the NFL. There's a lot of men in the NFL, not too many boys in the NFL. I think that the only boys are in Tennessee because they're bussing with the boys. Shout out to that podcast. I love listening to that. But Kyle Pitts is going to be good at the NFL level. I'm just not ready to tell you that year 1 as a rookie, he is going to be on a murderous tour of the NFL. I'm just not ready to tell you that. Some people will be ready to tell you that, but I'm being cautious with Kyle Pitts. I think he does have very good potential to one day be one of the better tight ends in the NFL. I mean, he would have to be. They picked him so high in the NFL draft, right? That's what they're looking for in Atlanta. I think he's good, but I'm just pivoting away a little bit, getting my feet wet, saying he's going to be good, but just worry a little bit. Worry a little bit. Don't be panicking too hard when you see that Kyle Pitts goes in like the 4th round. You're like, shit, I should have drafted him. I'll be honest with you, I would not want to be doing that. Next up at number 8, we have former quarterback turned tight end Logan Thomas, underdog ADP 103 of the Washington team without no name. In 16 games, Washington football team tight end Logan Thomas finishes tight end 3 in PPR, 6.5 PPR, and number 7 in standard, averaging 11 PPR points per game, 8.8 half PPR points per game, and 6.5 standard points per game. From a points per game perspective, he was tight end number 6 in PPR, tied with Hawkinson and Tanyan, or tight end number 9 in half PPR, and tight end 11 in standard, tied with Roberto Gronkowski. Yo soy fiesta. So Logan Thomas, very good. Very good. Had no idea who he was. No idea. And this guy puts up big numbers. 110 targets, 6.9 per game. Very nice. Number 3 at tight end. Puts up 72 receptions. Number 3 at tight end. 670 receiving yards. 7th at tight end. 6 total touchdowns. 9th at tight end. So he plays very well. Why am I pointing back on him? Why am I saying he might not finish as a top 5 guy again? Frankly, it's because Kittle's obviously probably going to finish as a top 5 guy as long as he stays healthy. And these other guys, to me, just seem a little bit safer than a guy like Logan Thomas. Now, with the addition of Curtis Samuel, with their draft selection of Diami Brown, does he lose targets in this offense? Now, Fitz is a guy that throws to the tight end. So, I wouldn't be ultra worried. I just don't project him to maybe be as good as last year. He's still going to be solid. You're still going to be happy that you drafted him, but I'm just not getting rock solid over here. I'm not bricked up to draft Logan Thomas. That's just really how I feel about it. I don't think he's a bad player. It's just nothing exciting for me. At number 9, a guy I am very excited about, though. But Nick, why is he ranked below Logan Thomas? It's because we haven't seen Irv Smith do it multiple times, like many times. We saw Logan Thomas do it for a full season. Irv Smith, tight end of the Minnesota Vikings, in 13 games finishes tight end 22 in PPR, half PPR, and number 21 in standard, averaging 7.6 PPR points per game, 6.4 half PPR points per game, and 5.3 standard points per game. Meaning, from a points per game perspective, this guy was tight end number 24 in PPR, 24 in half PPR, and 21 in standard. So again, throw those fucking numbers out the window, because we're going to be talking about splits, and we're not talking about those Mia Malkova splits. Again, you can watch those on the other tube. We're talking about the Irv Smith splits with and without Kyle Rudolph, the red-nosed reindeer. In 4 games was without Kyle Rudolph. His 8 games were with. In his 4 games without Kyle Rudolph, he's averaging 10.95 half PPR points per game. With Kyle Rudolph, it's 4.96, 12.83 PPR points per game versus 5.9 with Kyle Rudolph in the lineup, 9.08 standard points per game versus 4.03 with Kyle Rudolph in the lineup. Why is this? Obviously, it's because Kyle Rudolph is gone, so he's getting more targets and he's getting more receptions. He goes from 2.88 targets a game with Rudolph in the lineup to 5 targets. 1.88 receptions to 3.75, 0.25 touchdown per game to 0.75, and 22.75 yards per game to 45.75. Obviously, those numbers tell the tale that he's better without Kyle Rudolph. Now, where's Kyle Rudolph, you might ask? In New York. He's in New York with Kenny Golladay, so I think that Irv Smith here is in for a pretty solid season. He's still very young, only 22.8 years old. While he hasn't necessarily put it together, while a lot of people have talked about him as a sleeper, they definitely did last year, it didn't end up really panning out because of Kyle Rudolph, but going at pick 116.4 based upon current underdog ADP, I definitely think he's worth a shot to finish as a top 10 tight end in fantasy football, as long as Mr. You Like That Kirk Cousins plays pretty solid. Closing out the top 10, we have tight end of the Denver Broncos, Noah Fant, current underdog ADP 94.4, obviously of the Denver Broncos. Now, this is another tight end that was a freak athlete coming out of college, out of Iowa, 4.50 40-yard dash, 98th percentile, 97th percentile speed score, 97th percentile burst score, 96th percentile agility score, and a 98th percentile catch radius. So this guy's a fucking athletic monster. Athletic monster. In 15 games last year, finishes tight end number 8 in PPR, tied with Rob Gronkowski, tight end 12.5 PPR, and tight end 13 in standard, averaging 10 PPR points per game, 7.9 half PPR points per game, and 5.8 standard points per game, meaning from a points per game perspective, he was tight end 12 in PPR, tight end 14 half PPR, tied with Gronk, and tight end 16 in standard, tied with Hayden Hurst and Jimmy Graham. The biggest complication with Noah Fant has to be the quarterback position. Will it be Drew Lock or will it be Teddy Bridgewater? Now, let me know down below what you guys think about this. You've obviously made it pretty deep in this video, so shout out to you for making it in here. We are talking about tight ends. A lot of people don't find the tight end position super interesting, but your balls deep in this video. Would you prefer, for Noah Fant's sake, to have Drew Lock as the starting quarterback, or would you prefer to have Teddy Two Gloves, Teddy Roosevelt, Teddy Bridgewater? Because personally, I believe that Bridgewater is not going to take the chances Lock takes in the games, while Lock may cause a mistake by throwing a fucking stupid interception to a guy that is clearly not open at all. They throw it right to the corner, bada bing, bada boom, and then you're out of there, you know? But Bridgewater, he's going to just play it safe, right? He's going to fucking just dump it off, throw it right across the middle, and have no fun, right? You're never going to win a championship, in my opinion, with Teddy Bridgewater. So why not just play Drew Lock? I think that's better for Mr. Noah Fant. So that's something I'm kind of worried about. 93 targets, 6th highest at tight end, 62 receptions, 3 total tugs last year, 673 receiving yards. But even if it's Drew Lock, that's not the quarterback you want to be throwing the ball to Noah Fant. And with such a solid defense, if maybe they do play Bridgewater and they're winning these games, they're going to try to run the ball more in the game, and then you're kind of pissed off about Noah Fant. So frankly, I don't hate Noah Fant. Again, it's another scenario, just like with Logan Thomas, where I'm not getting my rocks off drafting Noah Fant. It just doesn't make me super excited. I'll draft him because I missed out on some of the other guys that I wanted, and I won't be pissed off about it because, you know, typically I wait on the tight end position, so I'll feel fine with it. But again, nothing super exciting in my opinion. Final 2 tight ends here, Robert Tanyan and Mike Gesicki. First, Robert Tanyan, tight end number 11 of the Green Bay Packers last year. Another guy that I was not ready at all to be this good. Underdog ADP 127.0, going undrafted in fantasy football last year. Was an undrafted player in the NFL draft in 2017. I thought Jay Sternberger was going to be. I thought that really anyone was going to be the guy besides Robert Tanyan, and he took my world and flipped it upside down like I was the Fresh Prince of goddamn Bel-Air. In 16 games, finished as tight end number 4 in PPR, 3.5 PPR, and numero 3 in standard, averaging 11 PPR points per game, 7.9 half PPR points per game, and 7.8 standard points per game. From a points per game perspective, he was tight end number 6, tied with Hawk and Tanyan, tight end number 14 in... How could he be tied with himself? Clearly, he was tied with someone else whose name's escaping me, but we're not going back to fix that. Tight end number 14 in half PPR, tied with Gronk, and tight end number 5 in standard. So obviously, Mr. Tanyan had a great year, but we have no idea who his quarterback is going to be. I've talked about this with the running backs, with Aaron Jones. I've talked about this with Devontae Adams, and now I'm going to talk about this again with Robert Tanyan. Who the fuck is the quarterback of this team? I just slapped my mic. I apologize. Who is the quarterback? I don't know. I'll give you the Jordan shrug. I don't know. Is it Rodgers? Is it going to be Jordan Love? Because now, the reports were really negative on Love. Now, more recently, a lot more positivity on Love. I think that's because Love might actually be the guy now. So the cheesehead media is fucking sucking him off. So maybe that's it. I like Tanyan a lot. But I worry about the fact that if it's not Rodgers, there's no way he scores 11 touchdowns, right? I don't think he's going to score 11 touchdowns this year, probably even with Rodgers, which is going to significantly drop him down in the rankings. Number 1 at the tight end position, 21.2% of the time he touched the ball, 1/5 of the time, basically higher than 1/5 of the time he touches the ball, he scores a touchdown. Only had 59 targets, only had 52 receptions, 586 receiving yards. So if the touchdowns go down, then you're going to be pretty disappointed with Robert Tanyan. That's kind of my thought process, and the fact that I don't know about the quarterback situation in Green Bay. Final guy, my guy, Mike Licky Amagasicki, underdog ADP 118.8 of my Miami Dolphins. Second round pick out of Penn State a couple of years ago in 2018. Last year, Gesicki finished as the tight end 7 in PPR, 7.5 PPR, and 6 in standard, averaging 10.6 PPR points per game, 8.9 half PPR points per game, and 7.1 standard points per game. From a points per game perspective, he was tight end number 9 in PPR, tied with Dallas Goedert, 7 in half PPR, tied with Hawkinson, and tight end number 7 in standard. So that number I was talking about before with Robert Tanyan, the answer was that he was tied with Mike Gesicki in those points per game. My worries with Mike Gesicki is not that he's on the Dolphins. I think the Dolphins are a good team. I'm a Dolphins fan. Got their fucking hat on, Got the fucking logo on, obviously, because I like the team. I got Marino in the background, so I like Gesicki, obviously. But my issue comes with maybe now there's too many cooks in the fucking kitchen. Where's the fucking gabagool? So, now they got Waddle. Now they got Fuller. And, realistically, I think Tua's going to be better, right? I believe that. But if you don't believe that, then Gesicki should scare you. Spooky Gesicki, right? That's how I would feel if I didn't like Tua. I think Tua's going to be fine, so he's my tight end number 12. But he barely edged out Tyler Higbee, who I also like a decent amount. 85 targets last year for Mr. Gesicki, 52 receptions, 6 total tugs, 703 receiving yards. So he was very solid with Tua, with Fitzpatrick. So it didn't really matter who the quarterback was. He still was pretty solid, but he was pretty inconsistent last year. He goes from having 6 points to 27 points to 8.5 points, 2.5 points, 14 points. Then he has 0 points, but I believe he got hurt in that game. Never mind, that's a lie. It was against the Jets. That would have been the easiest game ever. He fucking puts up a goose egg against LA and the Chargers. He gets 1.8 points, then 7.2, 6.0, 8.3, then 11.5, 23.8, 23.5, 9.4, 9.7. So he's just up and down. And now with more weapons there, with more targets, I just worry that he won't be as good. Now, again, I don't think Mike Gesicki sucks. I think he's very good. And I mean, I've said this 6,000 times for 6 of these guys. I don't think they're bad or anything. I don't even know what I was talking about. But nevertheless, I think that Gesicki will be fine. But with all these weapons in Miami, something that I've never been able to say in my life, frankly, Maybe this is the year the Dolphins play good, but Gesicki, I'm not super high on him this season like I was last year. I was pretty high on him last year. So thank you guys all so much for watching. I love each and every single one of you guys. Thank you for everything you guys have given me. It's only June. We're going to keep on lighting up. June, July, August, full fucking force in August. I'm talking about the whole goddamn army. And by the army, I mean myself. I do this all myself. But it's me, myself, and I coming at you every single fucking day. Thank you guys for watching. I love you guys all. Thank you guys for the birthday wishes. It was my birthday last week. I don't know why I just brought that up again, but it's because I'm having my birthday party tonight. Very nice. We're gonna drink some alcohol. Yes, I like. Wow, will we was. Thank you guys for watching. I love you guys all. Make sure you guys stay safe. Thank you guys for everything again. I love you all. As always, Stay safe, and comment dog in the comments if you made it this far. I don't know why you're listening to me talk about random shit. I did the Borat voice just before. So have a great rest of your guys' day. Love you guys all. Mwah. Goodbye.